This is my reaction to Dan Vasc performing Danger Zone, originally by Kenny Loggins. Let's commence. Before Dan Vasc absolutely gives us his brilliantly magnificent vocal performance, which I know it will be because, spoiler alert, I've reacted to Dan Vasc many times on my channel and I know the man is a brilliant singer, so it's gonna rock. But before we get into that, shout out to this music to start us off here. This sounds nothing like Kenny Loggins' original song from Top Gun, ladies and gentlemen. I reacted to Kenny Loggins doing Danger Zone on my channel, that 80s classic jam, and here's Dan Vasc. He's gonna give us his interpretation of the song here along with Victor the guitar nerd, ladies and gentlemen. And already the song starts off being a metal-fied version of Danger Zone. Dan and Victor are going to take us to that metal Danger Zone with this performance. 100% certain, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see what happens with this one. I'm oh so ready. Let's rock it.
Listen to the how we roll. Man on the tension, banging up to touch and go. Highway to the danger zone. Right into the danger zone. Heading in the twilight, spreading your wings tonight. She got you jumping off the deck, showing it to overdrive.
Shout out for that keyboard work there. That sounds absolutely epic. And of course, shout out to Dan Vasc, the young man again, giving us such a vocal performance of note here, ladies and gentlemen. He's just sounding so epically laid back on this awesomely epic galloping track. That's what Dan is doing here, ladies and gentlemen. He's enjoying himself, throwing back to the 80s, wonderful jams from that wonderful decade, and giving it the metal treatment, giving it the Dan Vasc treatment. And that treatment rocks, ladies and gentlemen. It's about absolutely enjoying the music, and it's all about the awesomeness of Dan performing these wonderful tracks in a metal way. This is absolutely rocking.
Highway to the danger zone. I'll take her right into the danger zone. They never say hello to you until you get it on the run and lying overload. You never know what you can do until you get it up as high as you can go.
Awesome work on the instrumental by Victor there, ladies and gentlemen. Wonderful solo, the keyboard work. Utterly epic on this track. Bass as well, and the drum beat. It's all just wonderful stuff. Dan's voice, it's the wonderful topping on that metal cake. Are you with me, ladies and gentlemen? A wonderful metal birthday cake dedicated to the 80s, and that's Dan's voice. Are you seeing the imagery here? Ladies and gentlemen, this is just amazing stuff. It's brilliant throwback music, modernized in a brilliantly metal way, and it works for the Waylon perspective. It'll always work for the Waylon perspective. I dig when they take pop songs and they turn it into metal songs. I don't know if I've mentioned that, but now you know. Let's go.
Further on the edge, harder the intensity. Highway to the danger zone. Gonna take her right into the danger zone.
That was unstoppable. That was simply excellent, ladies and gentlemen. Dan and Victor reworking Danger Zone and turning it into a metal juggernaut, ladies and gentlemen. A thrash vibe that works so wonderful. Dan's voice, that metal singing style, absolutely sounding so perfect on the song, ladies and gentlemen. I absolutely dig what they did with that track. This reimagining of the song, it worked so wonderfully. It galloped along so freaking fantastically, ladies and gentlemen. Guitar work, totally on point. Keyboard work, exceptional. The drumming, the bass work on that song, ladies and gentlemen. And then Dan Vasc's magnificent singing voice, giving you that thunder, giving you that lightning, giving you that skill, giving you that stunning ability, ladies and gentlemen, and taking us back to way back when, to the Top Gun days of the 80s, ladies and gentlemen. And also that sequel, Maverick, was exceptional, by the way. Check that out if you get a chance. It was just brilliant stuff there by Dan, ladies and gentlemen. So epic. But that, ladies and gentlemen, we've been through this countless times. I mean, I tell you every chance I get, the young man's metal brilliance, ladies and gentlemen, it is simply unmatched. His ability to just perform these songs in such a stunningly memorable way, it is just peerless stuff, ladies and gentlemen. Dan Vasc being utterly magnificent on the track once again. Shout out to Dan there for that performance. Shout out for that rendition of Danger Zone. Not only did they go to the Danger Zone, you know, there's a wall at the back of the Danger Zone. Dan and Victor, with this track, they smashed through that wall, ladies and gentlemen, and then they kept going. They didn't stop. It was just unstoppable stuff all the way through. It was brilliant music, utterly enjoyable music, wonderfully done, brilliantly done, exceptionally done by Dan Vasc. Ladies and gentlemen, that was fantastically electrifying.